He saved her daughter and collapsed. The alien queen refused to let the human die. HFY Sci-fi Story. Elias Kane had never imagined he would find himself on the world of Zyphara, a planet that shimmered under two suns with towers that seemed to stretch into the sky like silver needles. He was a human engineer, trained to fix machines, solve problems, and think fast under pressure. Yet standing on the observation deck of the convoy's ship, he realized that nothing in his training had prepared him for this. The intricate politics, the alien elegance, and most of all, the responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. The convoy had come to Zyphara as part of a peacekeeping mission to study their energy technology and maintain diplomatic ties. But the mission had already taken a dangerous turn. A research tower, one of the tallest on the planet, was showing signs of instability. It was home to Princess Leora, the young daughter of Queen Illithra. Rumors said she was curious, adventurous, and stubborn. Elias had not met her yet, but he had seen her in holographic images. Small, bright-eyed, with a cautious smile that could charm even the most rigid alien advisors. And now, he was about to meet her in the most terrifying circumstances. A loud alarm cut through the calm hum of the convoy. Red lights flashed across the observation deck, bathing everything in a harsh glow. The structure of the tower quivered on the distant horizon. Elia's stomach tightened. Something had gone wrong inside. The communication channel crackled. "Princess Leora is trapped," came the voice of an alien guard. "The energy core is unstable. Evacuation protocols have failed. We cannot reach her." Elias didn't hesitate. His mind raced as he surveyed the chaos. The alien guards, skilled and disciplined, hesitated. They were worried about their own safety. Humans were fragile in their eyes, incapable of surviving the extreme conditions inside a failing Zypharan tower. But Elias had never let fear stop him. "I'm going in," he said firmly. His voice carried a certainty that surprised even himself. He didn't wait for permission. He ran to the transport shuttle, packed with emergency tools, energy stabilizers, and improvised rescue gear. He could hear the hum of the ship engines as they descended toward the tower, the ground growing closer with every second. The tower loomed before him, larger than any building he had ever seen. Its sides glimmered with alien energy, pulsing with light that seemed alive. The walls vibrated as if the tower itself was groaning under some invisible weight. Sparks arced from broken panels, and the smell of ozone stung his nose. Elias landed near the base. The alien guards formed a hesitant perimeter, their eyes filled with worry and something else. Respect, perhaps, for the human who would risk himself. He ignored them, sprinting toward the entrance. Inside, the tower was a maze of glowing corridors, metal surfaces, and energy conduits that arced dangerously. Every step was a challenge. Parts of the floor had collapsed, leaving gaps he had to leap over. Sections of the wall had broken, releasing bursts of energy that could fry a human in an instant. His heart pounded, but he pushed forward. Then he heard her voice, a small, terrified cry echoing through the corridors. "Help! Someone please help me!" Elia's blood ran cold. "Princess Leora," he shouted. He followed the sound, weaving around debris and dodging sparks. The corridors narrowed, forcing him to crouch and crawl in some places. He was covered in dust and sweat, but he didn't stop. He had to reach her. He finally found her in a small observation room, the walls glowing red with unstable energy. The princess was huddled in a corner, her wide eyes filled with fear. She was smaller than he had imagined, fragile in a way that made him want to protect her even more. "Princess, I'm here to get you out," Elias said, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. "Can you move?" She shook her head, clutching a small tablet she had been working on. "The doors, they're locked. The energy, it's too strong," she whispered. Elias examined the situation. The energy core in the center of the room was sparking wildly, sending arcs of electricity across the floor. The doors were fused shut with energy fields. He had to act quickly. He pulled tools from his backpack, improvising as he went. Using a small stabilizer device, he began to redirect the energy flow away from the doors. Sparks flew, and he felt the heat singe his arms, but he didn't stop. "Stay close to me," he instructed. "We'll get out together." The princess nodded, her trust in this human absolute. It amazed him. He wasn't just saving her from danger. He was stepping into the role of protector, someone who must act without hesitation, someone who had no right to fail. Minutes felt like hours. He created a temporary bridge over a collapsed section of the floor, using a reinforced panel and energy shields to keep them safe. Each step was precise, careful, yet urgent. Behind them, the tower groaned louder, as if it could feel the human intruding on its structure. Suddenly, a massive jolt shook the room. Elias stumbled but caught himself, shielding the princess with his body. The energy core flashed violently, sending a wave of heat and light through the corridor. His vision blurred and his legs threatened to give out. But he held on, focused on the goal, getting the princess out alive. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached a maintenance elevator. The controls were damaged, but Elias quickly rigged a manual override. The elevator shuddered and began its slow descent. Sparks flew and the walls shook, but they were moving. He glanced at Leora. She was pale but still clutching his arm. "Thank you," she whispered. Elias gave her a small, reassuring smile. "Just hold on a little longer." As they neared the bottom, the tower let out a deafening roar. A section of the structure above them collapsed, sending a wave of debris and energy cascading toward the elevator. Elias pushed himself against the controls, using every ounce of strength to keep the elevator stable. He could feel his own energy draining, his body screaming in protest. The princess looked at him, fear and awe in her eyes. "You're human?" she asked softly. "Yes," Elias said, his voice strained. "And I'm not going to let anything happen to you." Finally, they reached the ground. Elias helped Leora step out of the elevator, guiding her to safety. The alien guards were waiting, their expressions a mix of shock and admiration. But before Elias could follow, his legs gave way. He collapsed onto the ground, the world tilting around him. Pain shot through his body and darkness edged his vision. The last thing he heard before losing consciousness was the sound of the princess, voice crying out, "No, don't leave me." Then silence. When he opened his eyes, he was surrounded by the alien court. Queen Illithra, tall and commanding, stood over him, her expression unreadable. The princess was safe, but Elias was unconscious, bleeding, and barely clinging to life. "You will not die," the queen said sharply to her advisors, her voice carrying a weight that silenced the room. "This human saved my daughter. That alone is reason enough to keep him alive." The guards exchanged uneasy glances. Humans were fragile. They had never seen one endure so much. Yet here was proof of something they had long underestimated. A human's courage, resilience, and determination could surpass their expectations. Elias remained still, breathing shallowly, but something in the queen's eyes hinted that he was no longer just a human visitor. He had become a symbol, a reminder that sometimes the smallest, most unexpected beings could make the greatest difference. The queen turned her attention to the princess. Leora's small hand clutched her mother's, and her eyes were wide, filled with admiration and gratitude. "He saved me," she whispered. "And he will live," Illithra replied firmly, her gaze returning to Elias. "No one, no matter how advanced, will take his life while I can prevent it." For the first time, Elias felt the stirrings of a connection he hadn't anticipated. He was far from home, on a world that was not his own, surrounded by beings who did not fully understand humans. And yet he had made a difference. He had saved a life, and in doing so, earned the respect and protection of one of the most powerful rulers in the galaxy. Even unconscious, he had already begun to change the way the aliens saw humanity. And as he lay there, battered but unbroken, the storm outside the tower raged on, a storm that had not claimed him and perhaps never would. Elias woke slowly, the world around him blurred and hazy. Soft white light filled the room, and the air smelled clean with a faint metallic tang. He tried to move, but every muscle in his body protested. Pain shot through his arms and legs. For a moment he feared he might not have survived. Then he remembered Princess Leora. He had saved her, and he had collapsed in the process. He tried to sit up, but a gentle hand pressed against his chest. "Do not move," a calm, firm voice said. He looked up and saw Queen Illithra herself standing over him. She was taller than he remembered, her presence commanding yet somehow protective. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, studied him closely. "You are awake," she said. Elias nodded weakly. Where am I?" "You are in the palace medbay," the queen replied. "You were injured saving my daughter. You nearly did not survive." Elias' heart tightened. "Is she okay?" "She is safe, thanks to you," Illithra said. There was no anger in her voice, only a quiet, commanding authority. "And now it is my duty to ensure you survive as well." The human glanced around. The medbay was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls glowed softly, pulsing with life in a way that seemed almost organic. Machines hummed quietly, their purpose clear but alien. The air itself seemed charged with energy, soothing yet strange. I can manage, Elias said, his voice weak but determined. I've survived worse. You are human, the Queen said simply. You are not built to withstand what you endured today. The medics here cannot fully heal you using their standard methods. I will oversee your recovery personally. Elias felt a strange mixture of pride and unease. He was not used to being cared for, and yet this care was different. It carried respect. The Queen did not see him as a fragile human. She saw him as someone who had made a difference. Over the next hours, the medics and Elias worked together. Their equipment was advanced, unlike anything human technology could achieve. They injected nanite-like devices into his bloodstream, monitored his vital signs with sensors that hovered in midair, and adjusted energy fields to stabilize his muscles and bones. Elias helped where he could, offering suggestions based on human engineering and improvisation. The medics were surprised at his knowledge. You are thinking like a Zypharan, one medic murmured. Elias smiled faintly. No, just applying logic. Every system has rules. You can learn them. The Queen observed silently, watching Elias with a mix of curiosity and calculation. There was something about him, his mind, his will, that was different. Humans were usually predictable, fragile, and limited, yet Elias was neither. He adapted, he solved problems, and most importantly, he did not give up. By the second day, he could sit up and move slightly. He was still weak, but the worst of his injuries had stabilized. The Queen allowed him to meet Princess Leora. The young girl ran to him, her small hands clutching his arm. "You saved me," she exclaimed, eyes shining. "I only did what anyone would do," Elias replied, a tired smile on his face, but Leora shook her head. "No, you are brave, you are amazing," she said, her words simple but full of meaning. Elias felt a warmth he had not expected. Humans rarely received such gratitude, especially from someone so young and so powerful. The Queen stepped closer. "Your actions have shown more than bravery. You have proven the value of your species. Humans are capable of things we had not expected." Elias blinked. I don't know what to say." "You need not say anything," Illithra replied. "Actions speak louder than words." As the days passed, Elias began to recover more rapidly, aided by both alien technology and his own determination. He observed the palace, learning the routines of the guards, the patterns of energy distribution, and the layout of the rooms. His mind, always analytical, absorbed details that would later prove invaluable. Yet, as he regained strength, a new concern arose. Reports from the outer perimeter of the palace indicated movement, unauthorized activity near the lower sectors. A rogue faction of Zypharan exiles, seeking to destabilize the Queen's rule, was attempting to infiltrate the palace. Their goal was unclear, but their intent was dangerous. The Queen called a council to discuss the matter. Elias was invited, though he still felt weak and unworthy. Alien advisors argued in complex terms, using strategies that were difficult for him to follow. Yet he listened carefully, analyzing their plans with human logic. He noticed gaps in their strategy, points where the enemy could exploit weaknesses. "Your advisors are cautious, but they underestimate the human advantage," Elias said carefully. "They assume humans are weak, slow, and limited, but in unpredictable situations we can act differently, see patterns differently." The room fell silent. Even the Queen raised an eyebrow. "Explain," she commanded. Elias pointed out flaws in the perimeter defenses, suggesting simple but effective measures. Repositioning patrols, using energy barriers in unconventional ways, and creating distractions that the exiles would not anticipate. His ideas were practical, adaptable, and required minimal resources. The Queen nodded slowly. "You are proposing actions humans could implement?" "Yes," Elias replied, "and I can help execute them if you allow me." The advisors exchanged uneasy glances. Allowing a human to command parts of the defense was unheard of, but the Queen's decision was final. "He saved my daughter. His judgment is proven," she said. "We will follow his plan." Over the next day, Elias supervised the preparation. He worked alongside Zypharan engineers, combining human improvisation with alien technology. Simple adjustments, when guided by human intuition, turned into effective strategies. Guards were trained to act unpredictably, energy shields were repositioned, and traps were set in ways the exiles could not foresee. When the rogue faction finally struck, Ilias was ready. They attempted to breach the palace through tunnels and energy conduits, expecting the usual predictable resistance. Instead, they encountered calculated obstacles, redirected energy flows, and unexpected patrols. Ilias moved through the palace like a shadow, coordinating the defense. He did not fight with brute force. He did not need to. His value lay in his mind, his ability to anticipate and adapt. Each action disrupted the enemy, forcing them into mistakes. They had underestimated humans, and it cost them. In one corridor, a group of exiles tried to use a stolen energy device to cut through a wall. Ilias appeared suddenly, using a combination of human tools and alien energy manipulation to disable the device. The exiles froze in shock, unable to comprehend how a single human could outthink them in an unfamiliar environment. By nightfall, the palace was secure. The rogue faction had been repelled, their plans foiled, and their morale shattered. The queen convened the council again. She spoke with authority, her gaze sweeping the room. "This human has saved not only my daughter but also my palace. His methods are unconventional but effective. We owe him recognition." Ilias stood quietly, exhausted but alert. He felt a mix of pride and disbelief. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy. Here, on a world of advanced beings, he had not only survived but had made a significant impact. He had earned respect through courage, intelligence, and determination. Princess Leora ran to him once again, her small hands clasping his arm. "You saved everything," she exclaimed. "Even the palace." Ilias smiled weakly. "I did what I could," he said. The queen's expression softened slightly. "You are more than what we expected, human. Your actions have begun to change the way my people see your species. Perhaps humans are not as limited as we believed." For the first time, Ilias felt a deeper connection to this world. He was far from Earth, yet he had found purpose, respect, and a role that mattered. He realized that survival was only the beginning. Influence, impact, and courage defined humanity, qualities that transcended physical strength or technology. As the palace settled into a calm night, Ilias sat quietly, reflecting on the past days. He had faced collapsing towers, unstable energy cores, and enemy forces. Yet he was alive. He had protected a life precious to the queen, earned her respect, and shown that humans could stand alongside even the most advanced species. And in the quiet of the medbay, he made a silent promise to himself. No matter the danger, no matter the odds, he would continue to act, to protect, and to prove that humanity could rise above any challenge. Outside, the twin suns of Zyphara dipped below the horizon, casting a soft glow over the palace. The night was calm, but Ilias knew the peace was fragile. There would be more challenges ahead, more threats, and more moments that demanded courage. But for now, he allowed himself a rare moment of rest, knowing that he had not only survived but had begun to make a difference. Humanity, even in this distant corner of the galaxy, had shown its worth. And the queen, the princess, and the palace would never forget the human who refused to fail. The palace of Zyphara had not seen such tension in decades. Despite the successful defense against the rogue faction, the queen and her advisors knew that the victory was temporary. The exiles were clever, desperate, and they would return with new plans. But what no one anticipated was how a human, Ilias Kane, would become central to the coming storm. Ilias had recovered enough to move freely, though his body still reminded him of his near-death experience. Every step hurt, every movement required effort, yet his mind was sharper than ever. He spent hours analyzing the palace layout, studying energy conduits, and preparing strategies. To the queen's advisors, it was unusual to see a human so engaged in military tactics. Humans were not known for fighting advanced civilizations, but Ilias had already proven that humans were clever, adaptable, and when necessary, fearless. Princess Leora remained by his side, her presence both comforting and inspiring. She had begun to understand more about humans, about the way they think and act differently. Where Zypharans were cautious and precise, humans were creative and unpredictable. Ilias had saved her life once. Now he was teaching her how even a single person, thinking fast, could change the course of events. Late one night, as Ilias examined a map of the palace corridors, a warning came from the outer perimeter. A scout had spotted movement, small, fast, and coordinated. The rogue exiles were approaching again. This time they were better prepared. The Queen convened an emergency council. "They are learning from their mistakes," one advisor said. "We cannot allow them to breach the palace again." Elias studied the incoming report carefully. "Their approach is predictable if you look at it the right way," he said. "They will try to use the old tunnels, the ones that were not reinforced after the first attack. If we reinforce only the obvious entrances, they will find a way through the back." The advisors murmured among themselves. One of them, a tall Xifaran with angular features, spoke sharply. "You are human. How do you know their patterns better than we do?" Elias met the alien's gaze steadily. "Humans think differently. I study patterns not just in what happens, but in what could happen. You expect them to make mistakes the way you make mistakes. I expect them to do what you do not expect." The Queen remained silent for a moment, then finally said, "Prepare as he instructs. Humans have an advantage in unpredictability. Let us see if it serves us now." Over the next few hours, Elias worked with the palace engineers implementing his plans. He repositioned energy shields, created new sensor arrays, and rigged simple but effective traps that relied on movement and timing rather than brute force. The exiles might be advanced, but they had never faced human ingenuity applied to alien technology. When the rogue faction struck, it was under cover of darkness. They moved silently, confident that the palace would react predictably, but Elias had anticipated their every step. As they approached the first energy barrier, they triggered a series of hidden sensors. Lights flashed, alarms sounded, and unexpected walls rose from the floor. The exiles stumbled, disoriented. They had prepared for a straightforward assault, but now every step was uncertain. Human unpredictability had turned their advantage into confusion. Elias moved swiftly through the corridors, coordinating the palace defenses. He did not carry a weapon. He had learned that strength alone was not enough. His mind was the weapon. He directed guards to block exits, rerouted energy flows to trap enemy units, and even used holographic decoys to draw them into dead ends. Every move was calculated, yet flexible, adapting to the enemy's unexpected choices. In one section of the palace, a group of exiles attempted to breach the main power hub. Elias arrived just in time, using a combination of human mechanical skills and alien energy manipulation to block their entry. Sparks flew and a small explosion rocked the room, but no one was hurt. The exiles froze, unable to understand how a single human could anticipate and counter their every move. Meanwhile, Princess Leora watched from a safe distance. She could see how Elias moved, how he thought, and how he solved problems in real time. It was mesmerizing. She had always admired cleverness, but seeing it applied in life-and-death situations gave her a new respect for humans. The battle stretched for hours, but Elias remained focused. Fatigue threatened to overtake him, yet he refused to step back. The Queen's earlier words echoed in his mind. Humans can rise above any challenge. He refused to let his species down. As the first light of Xiphara's twin suns began to appear on the horizon, the final phase of the attack commenced. The exiles attempted a desperate push through the palace's rear gates, hoping to find an undefended path. Elias had anticipated this. He had prepared a hidden barrier, a combination of energy locks and a pitfall disguised under a holographic floor. The exiles fell into the trap. Their confusion and frustration grew as one plan after another failed. They were forced to retreat, leaving the palace unharmed. The human strategy had turned their strength into weakness. The Queen's palace had survived not through sheer force, but through the brilliance and courage of a single human. After the battle, Elias collapsed in exhaustion. His body trembled, muscles screaming, but his mind was sharp. The Queen approached, her expression unreadable but her eyes reflecting approval. "You have done what no one expected," she said quietly. "You have protected my daughter, my palace, and my people with nothing but your mind and your courage." Elias shook his head, trying to manage a tired smile. "I just did what I could." The Queen studied him closely. "No, you did more than that. You have shown that humans, though physically limited, can be unpredictable, courageous, and effective in ways that even the most advanced Xifaran cannot always match. Today, you have changed how my people see your species." Elias felt a warmth spread through him, a quiet pride he had never experienced. On Earth, humans were often underestimated, dismissed, and overlooked. Here on Xiphara, he had proven that humanity could stand on equal footing with the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Princess Leora ran to him, wrapping her small arms around his waist. "You saved everything. You saved the palace. You are amazing." Elias smiled, exhausted but happy. "I could not have done it without your courage, too," he said. The princess giggled, her trust in him unwavering. The queen placed a hand on Elia's shoulder. "Rest now," she commanded. "You will need your strength. This victory is only the beginning. There are greater challenges ahead, and we will face them together." That night, Elias lay in the medbay, reflecting on the events of the past few days. He had faced danger, pain, and near death, yet he had not faltered. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, and certainly not the most advanced, but they were resourceful, resilient, and capable of extraordinary courage. He realized that HFY, humanity at its finest, was not about physical dominance. It was about heart, mind, and spirit. It was about rising to challenges, thinking in unexpected ways, and refusing to give up. He had embodied these qualities, and the Zyfarans had witnessed them firsthand. In the quiet of the medbay, the twin suns rose over the palace, casting golden light across the city. The world was calm again, but Elias knew this peace was temporary. Threats would return, challenges would come, yet he was ready. He had survived impossible situations before. He had learned to trust his instincts, his knowledge, and his courage. And he was no longer just a visitor on Zyfara. He had earned a place here, a role in shaping the future of this world. The queen and her people had recognized something extraordinary in humanity. And Elias Kane would continue to prove that humans were capable of greatness, no matter the odds. As the palace began to stir with activity, Elias rose slowly, muscles still aching, mind still alert. He would not rest for long. There were plans to refine, defenses to strengthen, and lessons to teach. The rogue exiles had been defeated, but the galaxy was full of threats. Humans would rise to meet them, not through strength alone, but through courage, ingenuity, and heart. And Elias Kane would lead the way. The peace in Zyfara was fragile. Though the rogue exiles had been repelled, their defeat only marked the beginning of a larger challenge. Across the galaxy, news of Elias Kane, the human who had saved Princess Leora and defended the Queen's palace, spread quickly. Some were impressed, others angry. A coalition of rival factions, hearing of his exploits, saw an opportunity to strike, not just at the palace, but at the human who had proven that one person could change the course of events. Elias, recovering steadily under the care of Queen Illithra and the palace medics, felt a strange mix of exhaustion and anticipation. His body had healed, thanks to advanced Zypheran technology and his own resilience, but his mind was alert, always calculating, always planning. Humans thrived under pressure, and now the galaxy had decided to test him again. One morning, the palace sensors detected an approaching fleet, ships sleek and dark, bristling with weapons, moving with precision that suggested careful planning. The Queen convened her council immediately, the tension in the air nearly tangible. "They come for him," one advisor said grimly. "They know what he represents. The human is dangerous to their plans." The Queen did not reply immediately. Her eyes fell on Elias, who had stepped forward, leaning lightly on a staff to steady himself. "I can handle this," he said calmly. "We know their patterns, we know their weaknesses. Let me help." The room fell silent. The advisors were hesitant. Humans rarely led in military strategy, and yet Elias had already proven himself twice. Illithra's gaze met his. There was no question in it. She trusted him. "Very well," she said. "You will lead the defense. The lives of my daughter, my people, and this palace rest in your hands." Elias felt a surge of determination. He was far from home, yet he understood something fundamental. Humans thrived when faced with impossible odds. He had survived collapsing towers, unstable energy cores, and clever enemies before. This was no different. The first step was preparation. Elias worked alongside Zypheran engineers and guards, redesigning the palace defenses. He combined human improvisation with alien technology, creating barriers that were flexible, unpredictable, and lethal without endangering innocence. Energy fields were rerouted to create false paths, sensor arrays were programmed to give misleading readings, and hidden channels were established for rapid troop movement. Every measure was designed to confuse the enemy, making the human mind the greatest weapon of all. Princess Leora watched, fascinated. "How do you think like this?" she asked softly. Elias smiled faintly. "I look at what people expect, then I do something they do not. Humans have a habit of seeing possibilities others miss." The queen observed quietly, a faint smile crossing her face. "Your species is truly remarkable," she said, "not for your strength but for your courage and intelligence." Night fell and the fleet arrived. Their ships circled the palace with deadly precision, weapons charged and ready. Sensors picked up hundreds of enemy units attempting to infiltrate the palace from multiple angles. The situation was dire, and yet Elias remained calm. He directed the guards, the engineers, and even the Queen's elite troops with clear, concise commands. Each move was calculated yet adaptable. The human's advantage, he knew, lay in unpredictability. The enemy expected a straightforward defense, but Elias had prepared for every contingency. The first wave struck through the outer corridors. The enemy assumed the energy shields would be static and predictable. Instead, Elias had set them to shift and pulse unpredictably, forcing the attackers into confined areas where traps awaited. The exiles stumbled into barriers, were slowed by force fields, and fell into concealed pits. Their advantage was neutralized. Elias moved through the palace like a shadow, monitoring multiple sectors at once. His human intuition allowed him to anticipate attacks before they happened, redirect reinforcements, and improvise when unexpected situations arose. In one sector, the enemy tried to overload the palace's power core. Elias was there in moments, rerouting energy flows, stabilizing the system, and using a simple human-engineered tool to disrupt the attacker's device. Sparks flew, alarms blared, yet the palace remained intact. Princess Leora observed from a secure location. She had seen Elias' ingenuity in smaller challenges, but this was different. The stakes were higher, the pressure immense, and yet he remained calm, focused, and decisive. She felt a deep respect for him, not just as her rescuer, but as someone who could think and act under pressure when lives depended on it. Hours passed, and the battle continued. The enemy was clever and relentless, but every time they adapted, Elias had already thought 2 steps ahead. His human perspective, combined with the advanced technology of Zyphara, created a defense that was nearly impossible to penetrate. The enemy grew frustrated, their morale dropping with every failed attempt. During the final assault, the enemy attempted a direct strike at the central chamber where the queen and princess were stationed. Elias anticipated this move. He activated a series of holographic decoys, rerouted energy defenses, and positioned elite guards to intercept any breach. The enemy entered what they thought was the main chamber, only to find themselves trapped in an isolated corridor with no exit. Elias moved swiftly, cutting off their retreat and forcing surrender without unnecessary bloodshed. One by one, the enemy forces realized they had been outsmarted at every turn. Human unpredictability had turned their confidence into chaos. Finally, as the first light of Zyphara's suns rose, the battle ended. The palace was unharmed. The enemy had been repelled, their plans destroyed, and their morale shattered. The queen's court gathered, astonished by the humans' brilliance and leadership. Ilithra approached Elias, her expression calm but full of authority. "You have done what no one expected," she said. "You have protected my daughter, my palace, and my people. You have done it not with brute force, but with courage, intelligence, and determination. You have proven that humans are capable of greatness." Elias, exhausted, could only nod. "I just did what I could." "No," the queen replied firmly. "You did more than anyone could. You have changed the way my people see your species. Humans are no longer just fragile visitors. They are capable allies, thinkers, and heroes." Princess Leora ran to him, her small hands clutching his arm. "You saved everything. You are amazing." Elias smiled faintly, feeling a warmth he had never known. Across the galaxy, humans were often underestimated, dismissed, or ignored. Here on Zyphara, he had proven that even one human could make a difference. Courage, intelligence, and heart had triumphed over superior technology and overwhelming odds. The queen placed a hand on his shoulder. "From this day forward, you are recognized as protector of the princess. Your actions have earned respect, trust, and gratitude. You will have a role in shaping the safety and future of this palace and this world." Elias felt the weight of her words. It was more than honor, it was responsibility. And he accepted it, knowing that humans could rise to challenges not by being the strongest, but by being clever, courageous, and unwavering. In the days that followed, Elias worked with the queen and her advisors to reinforce the palace further. His strategies combined human improvisation with Zypharan technology. creating systems that were flexible, adaptive, and nearly impossible to overcome. The palace had become a fortress, not just of walls and energy fields, but of intelligence and foresight. Princess Leora remained close, eager to learn and help. She watched Elias, absorbing lessons in strategy, courage, and ingenuity. Through him, she began to understand that heroism was not about strength alone, but about thinking, caring, and acting decisively when it mattered most. One evening, as the twin suns of Zyphara set, Elias stood on the observation deck, looking out over the city. The palace, once threatened, now stood secure. The people moved about, safe and unaware of the invisible struggles that had kept them protected. He felt a quiet pride, not in himself alone, but in what humans could achieve. The queen approached, silent until she stood beside him. "You have shown us the power of humanity," she said softly. "You have taught us that courage, intelligence, and heart can overcome even the greatest odds. You have earned your place here, Elias Kane." Elias nodded, humbled. "I only did what any human would do." "Perhaps," the queen said with a faint smile, "but few would do it with such clarity, courage, and persistence. You have changed the way we see your species. You have made humanity worthy of respect in our galaxy." As night fell over Zyphara, Elias realized that his journey had only just begun. He was far from home, yet he had found purpose, recognition, and a role that mattered. He had survived impossible dangers, led brilliant defenses, and earned the trust of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Humanity had proven itself once again, not through dominance, but through courage, ingenuity, and heart. And Elias Kane, the human who refused to fail, would continue to stand as a symbol of everything remarkable about his species. In the vastness of the galaxy, where danger, chaos, and unpredictability were constant, humans could rise above. They could survive. They could protect. And above all, they could inspire. With a deep breath, Elias turned back toward the palace. The queen, the princess, and the people of Zyphara trusted him. They believed in him, and he, in turn, knew that humans could never back down. The galaxy was wide, threats were many, and challenges were endless. But humanity would meet them, one bold, courageous step at a time.